homeward bound. On a peaceful relief mission to the planet Aline, R2D2 and C-3PO were caught up in an adventure beyond their comprehension. After finally resolving the crisis and being taken to Jedi Master Adigalia's cruiser, they now head home toward the safety of the Republic, hoping to avoid a Separatist attack.
Greetings, Bucketheads. Mayvar Tigar. Welcome to the 138th dangerously droiderific episode of Mandovision. Our guy Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. Remember, the best way to find us is on social media at Mando_Vision, Twitter, Instagram. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure you are liking, subscribing, sharing, and following the show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. How is everyone doing? Welcome to another Star Wars The Clone Wars rewatch episode. Maybe it's Monday, maybe it's not. Who knows right now? I'm keeping my cards close to the vest on what we're going to do as far as the release schedule goes, but Monday's for sure. We'll see if we can step it up, though, in the coming weeks and get a few more episodes out per week. See if we can kind of keep up that more hectic pace. We'll see. We'll see. If you like that, let me know. And that might factor into the decision here. It's sort of it's sort of complicated in a sense. It's like, you know, there's no reason I couldn't do the 2 episodes per week other than it's just a lot of time, and I've sort of liked having more time to do other things at home other than just cranking out podcasts. But on the same tip, I really want to get through as much of this season as I can before we have to shift our focus to season 2 of the Bad Batch and eventually Kenobi at the end of May. So I don't know. Like I said, we're still in March. I got all of April to get it figured out. We'll have a plan sooner or later. And like I said, the idea is to get done with season 4 before those 2 things come up. I'd like to get into a place where season 4 is good to go, and we can just focus on Bad Batch when that drops, and then go into Obi-Wan, because that's going to keep us busy. Because I suspect there'll be a little bit of overlap with those series, so we'll be very, very busy here on the Mandovision podcast. So yeah, we'll just have to see. I'll keep you all posted as I sort of things become a little bit more clear, as I gain a little bit of clarity on what the future holds for us. So speaking of Kenobi, by the way, you know, I'm doing this thing again where I'm kind of revealing when I'm recording these episodes, and you may hear them a week or so later. But it's been coming out in the news. There's been reports about how the first iteration of scripts for Kenobi were going to be considerably darker than what they ultimately settled on for the series. Apparently, there was an entire draft of episode scripts for the episodes, even that were all set, ready to go, but they just turned out to be darker than what Lucasfilm was looking for. And apparently there was a little bit of concern from Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau about there being a little bit of a similarity between The Mandalorian and what they were sort of thinking of doing initially with the Kenobi show. Now, we speculated about all that stuff a while ago, because there were rumblings going around that there was a script delay before they began filming. So like the schedule for shooting Kenobi had gotten pushed back a month or two. And so we talked about that possibility. And one of the things we had heard was that there was some concern that maybe Kenobi's scripts were a little too similar to some of the overarching things they're doing over in The Mandalorian. Specifically, your central character overseeing a small child. In this case, it would have been Kenobi and a very, very young Luke Skywalker. It's also come out that there was some, in these first drafts, in this first wave of drafts, it wasn't Darth Vader that would be, sort of like the antagonist. They would have gone to Darth Maul. And on a personal note, as much as I enjoyed, Darth having his cameo at the end of, Solo and sort of how he's kind of come back into the Star Wars fold as this main villain, this main threat, I don't know how I would have felt about seeing him on the Kenobi show. I really like the way that Obi-Wan and Darth Maul's stories sort of wrap up in that episode of Star Wars Rebels. It's one of my favorite episodes of that series. In a series of really incredible episodes, that's one of my favorites. It really sort of just ties everything together with those two characters. Maul's fixation on Naboo and the Kenobi that we meet up with in Rebels is so far beyond all that. He's left all that. So he's grown so much as a character, and to see how they're sort of at these different points in their life, Maul mentally still focused on what happened to him on Naboo, and Obi-Wan's got this whole other mission going on. He's this whole new path of life and being this nomad in this desert for 20-ish years. His self-discovery he's just way off the charts from where Maul is, and it's a really wonderful episode. If you've not checked it out, I highly encourage it because it's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's awesome. It has all the Star Wars that you want in it. It has the wonderful homages to like the Kurosawa samurai films, as we've talked about in the past. So yeah, I don't think I would have been stoked on, kind of harvesting or retreading land that we've seen before. And I know that's a dangerous thing for a Star Wars fan to say, because a lot of Star Wars is kind of going back into the territory that we know so well and love so well. So it's always hard in that sense. But I do think Maul's story is told pretty well. And has a nice little bow on it. So showing that there was another confrontation between Obi-Wan and Maul, I would have gone along with it. I would have watched it, and maybe they would have really surprised me with how they worked it out and how they kind of danced between the raindrops of their continuity. But by and large, I'm glad they moved away from it. I'm interested to see how they fold Vader into this and dance around the raindrops of their continuity with him, because Vader is obviously a much bigger presence than Maul. I think we could all agree on that. So, and in doing so, we brought back Hayden Christensen, who I think, like a lot of the prequel actors, had initially had a bad taste in his mouth after a lot of the negative reactions to the prequels at the time. And we've talked about it on the show before, like how we've kind of come full circle from that time when the prequels originally came out to now 20 years later, and how there's an entire generation that they were made for, that loves them, and they have become much more. I shouldn't say much more like liked. That's not the case. It's just now that this audience that was kids before, now they are vocal, and they have social media and all the things, and they go to all the fan events and they do all the stuff, and they're like, hey man, the prequels are freaking awesome. And it's just so cool. I really have liked seeing the way the prequels have gained like a new life and a new appreciation, especially from fans of my generation who have gone back and revisited and realized that these are really good films by and large. Okay, all right. Let's get into Star Wars: The Clone Wars. let's talk about this episode of the show. I warned you on the last one. We are up to some crazy droid shenanigans in these episodes. And this is the second part of crazy droid shenanigans with R2 and C-3PO. We're here for Season 4, Episode 6, Nomad Droids. Original air date was October 14th, 2011. Our plot: C-3PO and R2 escape Master Gallia's Jedi cruiser in a Y-wing and find themselves in one bizarre situation after the other. The episode is directed by Stuart Lee, written by Steve Mitchell and Craig Von Sickle, who've done a few episodes in season 3, I believe. our voice cast this week: Anthony Daniels is back as C-3PO. Matthew Wood is General Grievous, and the battle droids. David Accord is I don't know how to say the name. Albed Diwa. D. Bradley Baker is the Clone Troopers. James Arnold Taylor is Plo Koon. Kevin Michael Richardson is Jesus. Catherine Tabor is Padme Amidala. Tom Kane is the narrator. And Angelique Perrin is Adi Gallia. So, let's just do our Jedi Fortune cookie as well. It's one of my favorite lines from Episode 4, from A New Hope. It's what Kenobi says to Han Solo as they're climbing out of the the smuggling compartment on the Millennium Falcon. In our Jedi Fortune cookie, who is the more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows him? One of my favorites. And I just go back to them coming out of the smuggling compartments, and the look on Han's face when Obi-Wan says that, it fills me with such delight. There's a lot of interesting aspects to this episode that we should sort of talk a little bit about before we kind of dive into it, because there's sort of like we're very focused on R2D2 and C-3PO. They're our point of view characters. We follow them on each of these adventures. But the show kind of bookends with the Clone Wars. You know, we open up, they're on the Jedi Cruiser. It's going to come under attack by the Separatists and General Grievous. They get boarded. We see action, the clones in Adi Gallia and General Grievous in combat. But again, we're following the droids around. So it's a lot like we're sort of doing like an expanded version of Episode 4 when the Empire's boarding the Rebel starship, and at the very opening there, right, when they're sorry, I am so tripped up over my own words right now, but they're sort of recreating that shot, that sequence a little bit. Just this time we're just on the Jedi Cruiser. It has a lot more in common with the Star Destroyer than the Rebel blockade runner. So it's got a lot of those rings to it. And then we catch back up with our characters later on, our Jedi characters, our clone troopers later on, and we see like there's been like this entire thing going on with them. Like Adi Gallia is captured at one point, and then she's free, and they're escaping from the Separatist starship. So like there's this whole other storyline going on that R2 and C-3PO just kind of weave in and out of while they're on their own adventures after they escape from the Jedi Cruiser in a Y-wing. And it's a lot of fun. It's a strange episode. It has a lot in common with like Gulliver's Travels, especially the first adventure in particular. It's weird. It's bizarre. It's sort of surreal in a sense. But like the last one, it's sort of a fun one too. It's an easy watch. You don't have to do like any deep diving, any deep thinking on anything. They really bring it to your attention here. It's like these little vignettes sort of. And again, I think it's pretty fun and enjoyable. An easy watch. And again, I like the way they weave in and out of this Clone Wars situation, this battle between Grievous and these other, by and large, bigger, more important characters, quote unquote. And we just have the droids as our POV. I really dig it. I think it's an interesting episode. Does it work on every single level? No, it doesn't. But again, an interesting attempt to do something different within the context of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. So let's go ahead and get into this episode. You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
They've hit the main reactor. Prepare to evacuate.
Non-status personnel, evacuate immediately. Non-status personnel, evacuate immediately.
Did you hear that? Oh, we've got to get out of here. It's General Grievous! Arthur, where are you going? We need to find an escape pod.
Yeah, so there you go. You can hear the sort of blaster fire as the droids are moving through the corridors of the ship in their attempt to escape, sort of recreating what we saw in the Tantive 4 back in A New Hope. So, again, I like that sequence, but let's kind of fast forward the story because, it really begins once they evacuate, right? They have to... They're in a Y-wing for reasons, because I guess they couldn't find the escape pod. So they get out in the Y-wing, and they are quickly pursued by Vulture droid. Excuse me, my goodness. And they crash land on the planet. I think I'm going to say this right. Hopefully, we'll say this right. Patatit Patuna, and they are quickly taken as captives by the very diminutive natives of the planet, which I believe they call them the Petitites. Oh boy, this is a fun one to say. It's a lot of T's and a lot of I's. We're gonna say the petitites, and hope that's correct, because it just sounds funny to me. We find out that they are again, despite their diminutive nature, they are quite capable of bringing down R2 and C-3PO. I don't know how they do against some clone troopers, but again, this is sort of like the Gulliver's Travel moment, where they're sort of tied down to the ground, and these little beings are all around them and telling them that, hey, off-worlders aren't welcome here, and they have this ruler Hezu, who is not nice, not a nice guy. But let's check out what Hezu has to say to our droids.
So, you are the intruders.
Intruders? Oh, hardly, your worshipfulness. We are...
On this planet, things are what Jesus says they are.
Quiet, R2.
What's this? Your friend challenges Big Jesus' authority?
Sir, my disagreeable friend here means no disrespect. We are just trying to get back to our home planet. But our ship is damaged, and I fear, repaired or not, that further travel in it might not result in our arrival there unscathed.
That's the chance you'll have to take. Now get off my planet while I'm in a good mood. I'll have you dismembered and sold for scrap. Free them!
Okay, so what sort of happens next is, again, these are diminutive people. They're very, very tiny, and somehow C-3PO, using strength that we never knew he had, is able to tip R2D2 over, and R2 falls on Hezu and kills him. And then the natives of the planet are sort of unsure what to do next, so C-3PO decides to introduce them to the notion of democracy. And it doesn't go well, as the losers of the vote start attacking each other, and the winner of the vote. So, again, democracy in action at its finest in Star Wars. And this is when our droid companions make a hasty exit. And then in a little bit of another shot at these very, very tiny people, as they're taking off, the wash from the Y-Wing's engines blows them all back into the ground and stuff like that. So now we're on to our next planet in the episode. And again, it's like 3 little vignettes. And yeah, okay, so the Y-Wing has to land again because the power system's damaged and is running down. So they prepare to land on the next available planet, which is Balnab. It's a different kind of planet than our last one visually. It does have natives that we are going to encounter. Our droids are going to encounter. And this little vignette is sort of a Wizard of Oz kind of thing, because we meet the leader of the Balnabs. They're a great leader, quote unquote, Albi Diwa. And he's this giant hologram, like the great and powerful Oz was, right? We don't actually see him; it's just a hologram. Until R2 notices that there's sort of like this cutout in this rock partition. And so R2 opens that partition, and we go in to find out that the great leader is in fact a bunch of pit droids. And they sort of have manipulated the natives of Balnab into doing sort of like their dirty work. You find out they're in a crashed star cruiser of their own, and it looks like they're trying to get these beings to sort of enable them to get off the planet. It's sort of funny to see a bunch of pit droids kind of being malevolent, right? That was an interesting choice on there. But yeah, once the natives find out that they're being manipulated by pit droids, it does not go well for the pit droids. But it goes well, or even worse, for our heroes, because they still aren't able to solve the power issues. And now R2 and C-3PO are running low on power themselves, and they both eventually have to shut down. And that's when they're discovered by a band of weak-way pirates who takes them to their ships and recharges them for gladiatorial combat. So we get to see like some BattleBot action here. With very familiar droids we've seen from them throughout the Star Wars films and other forms of animation, going into combat with one another, and it's a little much. And just as he and R2 are getting thrown into the pit, Grievous's ship soon descends on them, and he's going to use the pirates as target practice for his droids. The cannons from Grievous's ship puncture the hull of the pirate ship, and R2, C-3PO, and several of the other droids are blown out into space. Now, R2's got his little rockets, so he manages to get them onto the Separatist ship, which is a pretty funny moment in and of itself. And yes, I know I'm skipping through the middle section. I'm not playing a clip from the Oz stuff, because that was sort of the one where it was like a little off with it. But I want you to check out this clip, because I like this bit where R2 and C-3PO are talking to the battle droids once they've come aboard the Separatist ship.
We surrender. We surrender!
Where did you come from? They must be pirate droids. Pirate droids? You're under arrest.
Pirate droids? We're not pirate droids. We are part of the Republic. Oh, yes, we are pirate droids.
That is what we thought. Send them off to the Incinerator Room with the rest of the pirate scum.
The Incinerator Room?
Yes. You will be melted down for General Grievous's war machine.
So now we're off to the Incinerator Room, which is, again, another level of scariness for our C-3PO in particular. But this is where we are also dovetailing back into our Clone Wars storyline. When we saw Grievous realize that there's a pirate ship he's going to do target practice with, we see Adagalia as a prisoner. So next, when we're going to catch up with them again, we're to the next part of that storyline too, where now she's free and attempting to escape from the ship. And again, it's just General Grievous has problems hanging on to some of the more popular and known Jedis in the Star Wars universe. And not to oversimplify what's going on with the story, the Republic shows up. They're in a rescue mission for Galia. That's how she's going to be able to sort of mitigate her or sort of force her own escape from Grievous's I was going to say hands, but is hands the right word for Grievous? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in a sense. So we're moving pretty quickly here as this episode closes out. This is also what it allows R2 and 3PO to make their escape from the Incinerator Room too. And now we kind of cut back to them in all the action like we saw them before. Again, sort of reminiscent of what we saw when we first met these droids back in Episode 4 on the Tantive 4. So let's go ahead and catch up as our clones and Jedi Master Plo Koon are storming Grievous' ship, rescuing Adagalia, and the droids are attempting to make their way out of things.
Thanks for the rescue, Master Plo.
General Grievous has fled.
Very good. Finish off the remaining droids.
We're Republic! We belong to Senator Amidala. Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
I can't believe it.
You know these droids, Commander Wolf?
Yes, sir. We transported them to Master Gallia's ship after we left the planet Aline.
Yes, Commander Wolf. How have you been, sir? We have been on quite an adventure.
Well, I'm certain Wolf would love to hear about it.
Actually, sir.
Excellent. It's a long story, and you won't
sir.
believe it.
Excuse
I
me.
hardly believe it myself. It all started.
And there you go. That's the end of the episode. It works out pretty nicely for everyone involved, doesn't it? Again, it's a very straightforward episode. I know we normally include more clips on these shows, but it just seemed this seemed to be a faster paced adventure for C-3PO and R2. I didn't want to throw up too many clips for you guys in this one, just because I did feel like it didn't really add anything to it. We hit the important notes, and that's what really matters. Again, it's a simple, fun little episode. R2, C-3PO on these wild adventures. Again, some of them referencing other things in literature, like I said, Gulliver's Travels, Wizard of Oz. If the third one connects to anything, I don't know. I mean, it's like what, Treasure Island? You get taken in by pirates. If I'm going to complete the metaphor, is that what we're going for? And that was a little Treasure Islandy. Probably not. Not so much. Not so much. Not in my recollection of Treasure Island. But it has been a hot minute since I read Treasure Island. So what do I know? But yeah, these Droid two-parters are always interesting. I always like reading the reviews. I mentioned it last week too. These sort of episodes get knocked a lot for being filler, and I guess filler is probably the most demeaning word I can use for them. And people say that like it's a bad thing. And I don't consider them filler. I just think Star Wars is so full of these interesting characters who not all of them are soldiers. Not all of them are for combat. Like we don't need a war story focused on C-3PO and R2D2. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Let's lean into the sort of bumbling duo aspect of C-3PO and R2 on these kind of strange adventures that allow us to explore different parts of the Star Wars galaxy, which I think is a lot of fun. And again, I think adults in particular have a really hard time having there be episodes that are a little bit more kid centric, a little bit more kid friendly, and that's a real mistake because they're crushing their own joy. If I wanted to be honest with you, I think they're crushing their own joy because they just want the story that they want, the narrative they want. They want the Star Wars action adventure stuff. They want the wars in the Star Wars. And you can't always get that. But I think what they do really nicely is sort of weave these characters on these adventures, on these sort of bizarre, strange adventures around a Clone Wars adventure, or an adventure of the Clone Wars. I mean, it's, you got Plo Koon, you got Adagalia, the clones are battling the droids. I mean, it's still part of the Clone Wars, right? So, again, I just sort of take some weird, sick fascination with reading negative reviews on episodes that are, by and large, very, very enjoyable. Just because it's not, I don't know, action oriented enough, and it's about the droids and not Anakin and Obi-Wan and stuff. You don't like it very much? Nonsense, I say. All right, we're gonna be. That's it for the episode. I give this like a 7. I like this one actually. It really grows on me the more I watched it. I watched it twice in preparation for doing this review because after the first viewing of the episode, I was sort of at a loss. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to talk about with it. It just was like, I don't know what I watched. That was like a really crazy, weird adventure with the droids. So I watched it again a couple days later and kind of wrapped my head around some of the more literary aspects of it, which made talking about it a little bit easier. But yeah, it's just a simple, straightforward one, but I like the way that it weaves, and that's nice. That's a good stuff. So yeah, I think it's a 7. You can knock me if you want and say it's a 6.5, but I think it's going to be a 7. I like the droids, and that's all I can say about that. Next week, though, we get back into some big-time Star Wars action. For all the other people who are hating these quote-unquote filler episodes with the droids, we got some big-time stuff coming up, going with the Umbar and Darkness series, and it's going to be a fun one. We're back into some Jedi stuff. We're going to get nuts with the Umbarans. It's going to be... It's my recollection of those episodes are very fond. Let's put it that way. So rewatching them will be very, very interesting. I have not gone ahead and rewatched them just yet because, well, I wanted to save the surprises. Because, yeah, it has been a hot minute since I've seen them. But I'm really, really looking forward to getting into those with all of you. And I want to thank you all so much for sticking around and listening. I know we're all kind of rewatching Star Wars at our own pace, so maybe you're not watching the Clone Wars as I'm going through them. Maybe you're on the Rebels right now, or you're watching the Resistance or some of the Lego specials. And I truly, truly appreciate all of you taking the time to download the shows and listen and share and hopefully laugh when I'm being just out of my element, saying words like petitites and things like that. It's just ridiculous. Sometimes the way that I stumble through some of these words I have to get out of my mouth, and the mouth just won't cooperate. And it's just, today's one of those days where my lips are moving maybe too fast, and that's part of the problem. Slow down. All right. Now that I've slowed down enough, we're going to get out of here. We're going to call it a day. But we're going to be back very, very soon. Again, the Umbar and Darkness coming up. It's going to be a good one. I can't wait to talk about those. This is going to be a lot of fun. Otherwise, I hope everyone is being awesome. And I want to thank the most awesome people, which are the Mando Vision Maniacs, which you can become over at patreon.com/Mandovision. You can join the Maniacs and gain access to the sweet bonus content. Thank you to our current Patreons, the Aspinall Chody, the Batman of Bayho, Jeff Nail. Jeff's on a great podcast called The Ring in Air. Check it out. Thanks to Evil Circle, the evilest of all circles, the Squid Master General, Mr. Brian Broussard, the New Jersey Devil, Mark Wegemer, our very own Joker and Harley Quinn, Brian and Krista of Pride Brewing Company, here in San Diego, and now in Baltimore, Maryland. Check them out. Great beers, great people. The Beer Hop Brigadier General, Jesus Beer Hops, the Silent Assassin, he who should not be named, and Syndicate Ram, co-host of Come On, It's Still Good, a former guest of this podcast, who might be on a certain episode coming up around May the 4th. Oh yeah, you heard it here first. All right, we're going to wrap this party up. I hope you've had a great time. I've enjoyed being here with all of you, and I thank you again for the support and the continued love on the social media. You are all the best. I love that I have carved out a small little niche of Star Wars fans that are just so awesome and so wonderful and positive, because that's what we want to be on this show. You know, again, it's a tough line sometimes when you want to critique something, but you got to keep that positivity there. And I'd like to think that I do a decent job of that. So, hey, we got things to look forward to. So many exciting things coming up. It's a great time to be a Star Wars fan. So why be a crappy one? Why be one with poopy face? And we're not going to do that. Star Wars is awesome. Forever and ever. Even when it's not awesome, it's still pretty awesome. And that's the bottom line. Because Stone Cold said so. All right, so let's wrap it up. I'm just babbling at this point. This podcast has to end. And it can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.